Today we're going to talk a little bit more about input-output tables and how to write functions. So a function can be represented by an input-output table. And the input-output table we've seen many times in the past, but let's just review what input and output means. Input is going to be your x, and your output is your y. Input and output can also be referred to as the domain and the range. So the domain are all the numbers that you're going to input into a function. The range is all of the answers, the different answers that you'll get for each input. So these are two new vocab words for this lesson. The input and output can also be referred to as the independent variable and the dependent variable. If you remember learning about experimental design, you probably remember that the independent variable will change. That's what you change. So that's your input, because you'll be inputting different values for x. And then your output is is the result of what you input, and that's the dependent variable. It depends on what the independent variable is. You may also see the output referred to as f of x, and then you read it exactly like that, f of x. And all that means is just another way to represent y. So if I wanted to write the function y equals x plus 2, I could also write it f of x equals x plus 2. And all this is telling you is that it is a function. Here are more examples of functions that will represent independent and dependent variables a little bit better. So remember that functions show a relationship where one variable depends on another. So plant growth. For plant growth, we have an independent and dependent variable, an x and a y. The amount of sunlight is going to be our x, while y will be plant growth, because plant growth depends on the amount of sunlight. Price of items, that is supply and demand, will determine the prices. Somebody's health, that will determine how nutritious they are. If they take care of themselves, that will determine their overall health. So these are just some more examples of independent and dependent variables and how they are as well functions. Okay, let's look at a math example. The table below is for the function y equals x plus 2. So our input here is x, our output is y. Here we have the numbers that we need to input into this function. So on the right here, I have written out the function with the numbers substituted in that we need for each one. So for the first one, I have y equals x plus 2. That's our function. For the first one is 1, because that's our input, x plus 2, we get 3. 2 plus 2, we get 4. We input 3. 3 plus 2 is 5, so we're going to put 5 here. And then we input 4, and 4 plus 2 is 6. So here we have our input-output table complete for the function y equals x plus 2. You could also see this written as f of x equals x plus 2, and these two functions mean the same exact thing. Okay, here's another example, and this is given to us in words, and we need to write the function. The output is 4 less than the input. So we're going to write the output is y is 4 less than the input, so x minus 4. We can also write this as f of x equals x minus 4. And now let's complete an input-output table. So our input for y equals x, our input is 2. So 2 minus 4 equals negative 2. Our input is 3 minus 4 equals -1. Input is 4 minus 4 is 0. And our input is 5 minus 4 equals 1. And there's our input-output table for the function y equals x minus 4. All right, here's your first on-your-own question. Write an equation for the function, then complete the table. So the function's given to you in words, and you need to write it as an equation. The output is 5 more than the input. And then complete the table for the given inputs that you have. For number 2, you have the same directions. The output is the product of 7 and the input. So write the equation and then complete the table. Number 3, which function rule is shown by the table? So now the input-output table is completed for you, but you need to tell me which function is being shown. Things to remember. What a function is. You can see a function in words or as an equation. Remember, the first visual we did was a mapping diagram where we used the arrows, and then today we did an input-output table. Over here is additional vocabulary that we went over today that you also need to remember. F of x, range is y, x is the domain, independent variable is x, and dependent variable is y.